Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this evening's special council meeting for the town of Edgewood to order. First order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Salute the flag of the state of New Mexico and the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Okay, the first item we must attend to is approval of this evening's agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve this evening's agenda. Can I make one quick comment?
I suppose.
Okay. I would like to let the audience know that I talked to Tammy Hill today, and Brad is at home. Nothing short of a miracle with the health issues that he's had. So I just want to say thank you all who prayed or sent good thoughts or wishes or whatever, but he is home. So thank you.
Thank you. Do I hear a second on approval of the agenda?
I'll second.
Got a motion and second to approve this evening's agenda. How do you vote? Councillor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Councillor Holly?
Aye.
Councillor Abraham?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We have an agenda. First item on the agenda is public comment. And the first person up is Mr. Louis Abraham.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Louis Abraham, 21 Morper Lane. I ask, I'm sure I won't get answered, who runs Edgewood? Who holds the powers? I believe it is the disgraced ex-mayor John Bassett. I believe that it's being covered up. If so, all who are covering up are guilty of criminal activity as well. Why is it that the ex-mayor parks in the back in the employee parking, has access to the building, and still probably has keys to the facility? Why was he out with the staff shopping for heavy equipment last week? The judge removed Mr. Bassett for breaking the law, yet Mayor Pro Tem Abrams and Councilor Holly, Clerk Juan Torres, and the rest of the staff seem to still cover up for him. Moreover, they hide it from us, the people, apparently with the blessings of our so-called legal staff. What do you say, people?
Thank you, Mr. Abraham. Next we have Thomas McGill.
Thank you. I'm Tom McGill, 12 Buck Road. First, a small point. I noticed, not in this packet, but in a previous packet, that we're still being, it appears that we're still being charged $10,000 for the last 2 months for engineering work on the bridge by VHI. It seems to me, since it's been announced that it was going for bid and so on, I think it would be reasonable to get an explanation for those charges. Just under $10,000 each month. Second item, 2 years ago at the budget, before the budgetary meeting, I asked that you visit the I asked that you revisit the asset management plan and take care of those things that might be needed. In the last meeting, the town clerk said that we're in the survival mode and can't really look at that. I think if you think about it, that's not really a reasonable way to approach this. As an example, 2 years ago, I picked 2 items from the asset management plan to illustrate the problem. I picked the 2 lifting pumps at the lifting station that were due to expire in 2019 or 2020. That is, they should have been replaced or maintenance should have been done on them at that point. According to my calculation, they should be ready to fail. I would point out that these pumps, they alternate, but they're the ones that keep the 35,000 gallons of waste every single day that arrives at the waste plant on its way to the waste facility. I picked them because they're expensive, they're critical, and they're hard to locate legitimately. To get an authorized pump in there, it has to be engineered. And both pumps were installed at the same time, and they both have been used the same amount. And if the remaining pump is put on double duty, twice the duty cycle, I think it would have to be considered unreliable. So I think it's reasonable to ask the town clerk or the acting mayor, what's the status of these particular items, just as an illustration. I think there's a fair probability they may have already been a failure. I'd like to see how it was handled and if you're not going to deal with the asset management plan, how are you going to deal with the possible failure? I would like to remind the governing body a couple of points. One of them is the Environmental Division does not monitor process. That is our responsibility. That is ultimately the responsibility of the governing body. In other words, if you don't, until you spill, you can do pretty much what you want if you meet their requirements in terms of testing and so on. And I would point out that both the old and the draft permit refer to a CWA, Clean Water Act requirement law that says that substantive information being withheld or lied about is a class 4 felony if no one gets hurt. And finally, I would like you to picture 35,000 gallons of waste coming down at the waste station every single day with a 6,000 gallon reservoir there. Think of the time you have to get this thing fixed if one of these pumps goes bad. You certainly don't have months that it would, unless you go find one someplace. If you haven't already thought about this and if you don't have a reserve sitting there. And I would say the consequences of this, what I consider willful neglect, will be ugly for the budget at the very least. And I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. McGill. Next, we have Mr. Ray Seegers.
My name is Ray Seegers. I'm a local realtor. I just wanted to mention that I've been to these meetings and listened, and all the in-person meetings, and everybody I'm hearing from wants us to vote on a resolution at large, and that's what I'm encouraging everybody to do, so we can vote on this election coming up at large. And the other thing I'd like to say is that you need to pay attention, if you can, to what Mr. McGill has to say. Mr. McGill, graduate of Georgia Tech Engineering, a scientist in Los Alamos, is a mechanical engineer who knows what he's talking about. And when he visits these sites and researches it, he's the only person I can find that really knows the top and the bottom of that sewer plant. So I sure wish you'd pay attention to it.
Thank you, Mr. Seegers. Next, we have Mr. Ralph Hill.
Thank you. Ralph Hill. I'm really concerned and very upset. September 1st, our wise governor and our great legislature have imposed the marijuana recreational mandate upon us. And I checked with staff, went and we looked to see if we could at least have a moratorium so we could study the effects of this recreational marijuana, these open smoking dens. And they said no, we're going to be imposed, but I need you all to think of ways we can watch and protect our citizens and our children from the effects of this. And I know the police chief's going to have his hands full. This will be a new driving impaired problem for him. And the problem is there's no way to chemically test people to see if they're under marijuana. You can only do a field sobriety check, and it opens everything up to all kinds of litigation. And Edgewood has never had a bar, even an alcohol bar. But I'm sure we're going to. They've relaxed the alcohol licensing, and we just need to protect our children. They say 300 feet from a school or a child care center is the distance you have to be. I think that's way too close. I'd say a half a mile. But maybe you all could figure out some zoning ordinance or how think about it, because September 1st is coming around pretty fast. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Next, we have Cheryl Hubbards.
Cheryl Hubbard, 49 Hill Ranch Road. I think that was a good point Ralph brought up, something to be thinking about. Okay. I just was commenting, that was a good comment, I think, about the marijuana, something to be thinking about. I just wanted to address the budget. I thought that the idea of having another team for the roads is an excellent idea. Everyone comes in here and that's their main concern is roads, roads, roads. And so I think we do need to get that other crew going and the equipment they need so that we can prepare our roads for paving and get more paving done in Edgewood. The second biggest issue, I think, is Venus Park. It's heavily used. I drive by there just about every day. Lots of people use Venus Park. And improving Venus Park, I think, is a real benefit because everyone benefits when we improve the park. Not everyone benefits from one road that gets paved, just the people who live on that road. So I think we need to do more there to improve it. One of the things is we definitely need better lighting. That was talked about in the budget meeting. I think it really needs to happen. You can't see there at night after events go on, and it's somewhat dangerous. I really support the idea of bathrooms with running water. I know that's going to be expensive, and I know it's not been calculated in the budget, but highly supported. I don't think our vents are going to grow and be as effective with these outhouses. So it's a thing of to make it a better facility so that we can have better events here. I do think we need more cameras. We need cameras over there. I think we need cameras there and perhaps even here at Town Hall so that the police department, I don't know if that's technically possible, that they could see that, but I heard there was some theft this last week. Well, I'm always hearing about theft in Edgewood, but to protect our what we put in there, nothing we put there is going to be a good idea if we can't protect it from vandalism and theft. So I'd like to see cameras in there that would connect to the police department, perhaps more police surveillance over the park. And especially if we consider getting I like the idea of a dog park. That's not at Venus Park, but in order to get people from dogs from pooping all over the grass, a dog park would be a nice thing, and it would really help animal control. So, I know that's a big money expense, but I do think if it's not this year, it's something to really keep high on the want list. It's not a need list, but it's a want. And along with that, though, we would have to have some rules to keep people from bringing their dogs on this park. And perhaps that rule would need to be in place that we have a dog park now, you need to go there, use it, and some police surveillance there. Finding people or something for doing that. It's something to think about. Better Wi-Fi, yes. I really appreciated the young man who came about the BMX track. I think it's an excellent idea. I do think it needs more research before we jump into that. we would need to know first what's the best location. I kind of felt the location was a little too close to the soccer field. But along with the bathrooms, if we did get that BMX park, and I think he called it a bike park, it wasn't just BMX, but for simplification. I think that it would be good to have this group of people who brought this forth. We need to know if we build it, will they come? We need to see where another park exists. What are they doing? Are people using it? How would it be promoted, in advance? We need a little bit more information, I think. But I thought it was a really good start to think about. I know we don't see a lot of use on what we have out there, but I think that's because we're not planning for events. We're not, just like soccer, kids don't necessarily just go play soccer, but when you have a team, then they come and they play soccer. So those are things to think about. Town Hall has come to it. I think we really need some lighting out here. I've had many people mention to me it's sure dark when we go out there. It's kind of scary out here. Could fall, I think, and I know the schools own the building, but if we can get lighting out there, I think that would be a big safety improvement, and landscaping definitely a plus. The grant writing position, I think we do need help with grant writing. It came under the police department and what Juan put out, but I'm not really knowing all the details. I know Carla does a certain amount of that, and she can't do all of it. But maybe this position could be a combined position. We hear about park and rec, need for park and rec lead. Maybe some sort of combination of grant writer, park and rec lead could be looked into or thought about. But definitely they shouldn't be hired until the new manager comes, but maybe we could budget for it. Youth program. I'd like to see us add a summer youth program for the kids, about a 6 weeks program. I really think that it would help parents in the area who work, especially, and there's just, not a lot to do. And I was able to use the program that they used to have, and it was very, very beneficial. I am not in favor of gaming systems for the library. I think kids spend too much time on computers as it is. The level 4 operator, we need to continue searching for that person, but we're going to have to pay them more because there's such demand. And I don't know, this is a far out idea, but maybe the town manager should be qualified in that area also and cover both bases. I'm definitely for clean and lean. I have to agree with Sherry Abraham on that one. We're not getting enough. We're not getting these properties cleaned up by sending them notices. We're going to have to do more condemning. Some of these properties are horrible that you drive by, and those neighbors have to put up with it all the time, especially one I see is on Mustang Road. And lastly, I think that we need to continue looking at the purchase on Bassett Road, and maybe that's really the most important thing. I know people didn't go for it last week, but cities who, I think Moriarty isn't a totally failed system. They're still trying. They have the brewery down there. The Google building is now filling up with other businesses that are hiring people. Las Lunas has done things for it's an incentive for an industry or business of that kind to come here. And if we offer no incentive for a business to be interested in being here, I just don't think they're going to come. So I just would like that to still be considered. I don't think it's a huge amount of money. And it's a lot of money, but it could really pay off. And I suppose if down the road we don't want it, it could be sold, So anyway, that's just my thoughts.
Thank you, Ms. Huberts. Next we have Phil Anaya.
Mayor Pro Team, councilors. My name is Phil Anaya, 06 Tenorio Road, Edgewood, New Mexico, 87015. I'd like to make one correction first. In the newspaper, Shara Welt, I believe is the reporter on it, under the marathon meeting, she reported that I was running in District 5. Well, that's not true. I'll be running in District 4. That's that little dog leg down there that's kind of, I don't want to go there. Anyhow, I would like, for the record, to show that it is District 4. and not District 5. Also, I would like to please, let's get moving on with the voting at large for the people that are going to run, so that we can figure out what the heck it is that we want to do and how we want to do it. It's important for the town of Edgewood. It's not just important for a few people, but it's very important for the whole community that we get this done. I'm just asking that in favor of the council to please, let's do that. Also, I'd like to know how to get more information on the budget line, 55,000, with more breakdown in it. If I have to go and request from the town, or if somebody could just call me and tell me what it is that the requirements for the town of Edgewood are.
Or which line item?
55,000, that's all. That way I could speak a little bit more knowledgeable than trying to just come up here and yell at you guys for nothing. I'm sure you've had enough of that. So, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Anaya. Next, we have Mr. Kenneth Brennan.
Good evening, Kenneth Brennan, 94 Square Ridge Road. Council Pro Tem Mayor, thank you for having us here today. Just a few notes quick on the budget. One of the things I was looking at was the overall raises for staff. National average is running between 2.5-3%, and if I understand this right, we were planning on a 5% raise. We're coming out of COVID. Not only are the people hurting, but the town is also hurting due to the fact of lower revenues. Businesses aren't being able to, their tax receipts are lower, everything has been reduced. The entire country is running through the same problem. We need to be very careful on how we spend our money. I know that people do a real hard job, they're really good at what they do, and they do deserve a raise. However, we have to be careful, once again, how much money we're spending. We need to keep things within a reasonable range. And right now I believe that the 5% that has been proposed is too high. I also noticed that on that they were wanting to add additional library staff. When we lived out in Wisconsin, we were living in a town that had a population of 20,000, and right next to us was Kenosha itself, with a population of over 80,000. Their library only had 5 full-time employees for a town of over 80,000 people, and they ran very efficiently. I understand that they want to add, I think it was 3 or 4 extra positions. Right now, I don't think that we can afford that. That money should be spent other places, and one of those other places would be on the road maintenance. The other day we were driving around, I came across some folks with a backhoe working on the ditch along Hill Ranch Road. I stopped and asked them what they were doing, and they said, nobody's come through here to clean these out. The culvert pipes are filled out. It's causing flooding across the road and creating a large mess as far as not allowing that water to go anywhere. So they came down with their own equipment, their own backhoe, and cleaning it out. That shouldn't be happening. All right, these are people that are working on town roads with private equipment. There's a lot of liability issues right there. All right, so that shouldn't be happening. And the way it shouldn't be happening is we definitely need to be maintaining those culverts. A lot of those culverts have not had maintenance in a long time. They've got to be cleaned out regularly, because you get water washing through them, you start getting erosion, you also have a lot of plant life growing up in there. We need to get better at it. So once again, a lot of places we want to spend money, but I don't think we're starting to spend that money in the right places. I noticed it was mentioned about the town hall lighting out here. Yes, that is dismal. I feel for the safety of any small single person that might be walking out there in that dark. Right now, we don't have a crime problem, but there are people from Albuquerque coming up here starting to give us a crime problem. And the one way to avoid crime issues is by putting light on them. All right? because the cockroaches run when the lights come on. So let's go ahead and get those lights out there. Now, I understand the lights that are out there right now, they look like they're halogen. There are grants that are available to convert things to LED. LED lights use very, very little power. I've converted my entire house to LED lighting. And I noticed it with my electric bill, the amount of money I'm saving. And then I went totally solar, so it even works better there. And the last thing I would like to discuss is the same thing we've been talking about every meeting, and that is how we're going to be voting come November 2nd. Once again, as we were having dinner today, before we came over here, I was talking to different people. And again, everybody wants to vote at large. Nobody wants single district voting. I have yet to have a conversation with anybody that wants that. They all want to do at large. Because one, we're doing a new government. Everybody should have a say on who is going to be running that government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Next, we have Sterling Donner.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'll be short. You guys have an opportunity to do what the people are asking. Listen. Go out on a high note. It's your time. It's your opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donner. We have a couple of callers online. Caller number 2, you've been unmuted. Do you wish to speak? Caller number 2. Let's move on to caller number 5, I guess. Caller number 5, do you wish to speak? Caller number 5? I'm not hearing either person wish to speak. So I believe we should move on.
Mayor Pro Tem. May I speak briefly? I didn't sign the paper.
Certainly.
Karen Kaiser. I didn't intend to speak this evening, but I see a problem coming back that existed under our removed Mayor Bassett. And I experienced it personally, where the 2-minute buzzer or the gong or whatever y'all had, I never got 2 minutes and 1 second. So that when I had comments, I would, like a nut, try to cram it in. So I do encourage you to be mindful that either don't time anyone or time everyone equally, or it's a really improper practice. And there's not a rule where members of the Bassett family can speak for 20 minutes and the rest of us get 2. And I don't know if you're aware that you do it, but those of us sitting in the audience are aware that some people can talk on for 10, 12 minutes. Last meeting, Mayor Pro Tem made me you've exceeded 2 minutes, Ms. Kaiser. I said, thank you, sir, you got to enforce it equally or don't have the rule. But there's no Bassett exception or any other exception to the 2 minutes, either for everyone or for no one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaiser. Is there anyone else? Mr. Powers?
Good evening, I'm Jerry Powers. I want to speak about the voting at large resolution tonight. I'm beginning to feel like a parent. I know this has been going on for months. There have been hundreds of people that have written emails. There were about 80 people at our legacy forum with CORE that overwhelmingly went that way. It's hard, in my experience in business, to get 3 or 4 people to agree on something. And it's really rare in public life to have no dissenting people on that scale. I was told by a county commissioner one time that the way he gauged public input or support was if there was a person in the room that got up off the couch, got showered after a hard day's work, came in and expressed their opinions, there were probably at least 10 more just like him out there that couldn't come. So when you had 60, 80 people, you had emails over 100, I think it was 150 or so. I've certainly had a bunch for CORE, and I've had nobody pick up the other side and say we want single-member district voting. So it's such a rarity, it's such a loud voice on that side of the issue that I would encourage you to listen to what people are saying, either unanimously or nearly unanimously, which I've never seen on a public issue. So I would encourage you to vote for that tonight. The other is about the budget. I watched the budget meetings, was unable to attend, but I was kind of astounded that the librarian would be asking for 4 new employees. Usually in a town, and some services are directly related to the population, like a library, like administration. When you've got 6,000 people one year and 6,000 the next year, or 6,030, I think it's completely inappropriate to explode the budget on a line item like that. Roads may be a different story because you adopt more roads for maintenance, then you have more miles of roads to maintain. That's not a linear function related to population, but certainly the library is. So I'm just using that as an example. There are other examples of linear functions like that that should not be, the budget should not be increased for, and I think it should be a reflection of our population demand. Population growth has been about 1.5% a year in Edgewood. New Mexico population has actually gone down in the last year. So anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Anyone else? Mr. Abraham?
Louis Abraham again, 21 Morpher Lane. I think as far as our budget is concerned, moving forward, that everything but the basics should be frozen until the next administration comes along. I believe voting at large is what the people want. That's what I want. That's what people are telling you. And there should be no new hires for large expenditures for this administration. That should also be left to the next administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abraham. Mr. Hill, if you wish, sure.
I was, will we be allowed to make I've got a priority list of budget items I'd like to see, and I was going to save it for the budget talk. Will we be allowed to discuss it then?
Really, there's no further public discussion, so please feel free.
Okay. Well, first of all, the police department desperately needs that generator, and it's so important for them to have upgraded communication and software with the adjoining law enforcement. So I think that's our number one priority, is to get that backup generator for our security. And one thing I forgot to mention in the marijuana is that there's California has experienced a lot of mental health issues with people because of the marijuana, and so I'd like to see maybe you all work toward that. Old First Choice Clinic was supposed to be a mental health facility. Let's move forward on that. And listening to Chuck, I do think we need that second road crew. They've got too many roads to maintain, and he indicated that they could also use that second road crew to prepare roads for paving. So I think that'd be my second priority. Third, I've always wanted an industrial park, and I think people last time indicated that we haven't planned or anything how to do it. And so I think work with the VITA and maybe get a comprehensive plan on how we're going to do it. Fourth, I think Seal Frost Road. We've got roads that are deteriorating, and Frost Road is probably top of the priority. And then we've got the other deteriorating roads. Sixth, we need to figure out the cost and budget for the new town manager and what it's going to take to find one. We do need to hire the certified waste water operator. I still think a finance director would be crucial to the town. It seems like our finances is falling way behind. And when I was working with Parks and Rec, I was really disappointed after Roger Holden left. They attempted to replace him, and then they pretty much took our advisory committee, and pretty much decimated it. Said we could only meet once every quarter. And we actually supported Roger Holden and advised him. We got him to do a lot of things. Anyway, pave and chip seal Appaloosa and Square H, but Appaloosa especially. Let's pave some roads. Ninth, I really think we need that dump truck with a snow plow and spreader. That's coming up. We have some big snows here from here every once in a while. And Campbell Ranch, we haven't even thought about what we're going to need to support it in the budget. And last, the dog park. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Also, voting at large makes sense to me.
Anyone else? Go ahead. And your name, sir?
Anthony Redzeres. I'm at 56 Skyline. Been out here for about 35 years in the same location. Just got a quick question. The fellow that runs up and down with that bobcat mowing all the weeds alongside the road, where's he been? He used to run up and down Skyline, and I haven't seen him lately. And the trouble is, the weeds are getting pretty horrendous out there. At one point, the intersection right there where the stop sign's at, the weeds are so tall, I pulled right in front of somebody, didn't even realize I couldn't see with weeds. But with all the rain and everything we're getting, it's getting pretty bad out there. I was out there with my tractor doing it, and as somebody had previously mentioned, the liability. I'm a little leery about getting out there with my tractor, blowing weeds and stuff all over the road. I'm kind of concerned about all the motorcycles running up and down the road, and I don't want that hovering over my head. But if you guys can fix me up with a couple of signs that I can put out there that I'm mowing, or flip me a couple bucks, I'll take care of it out there. You know, I mean, at least pay for my gas anyway in my tractor. You know, and also too, voting at large, I'm all for it. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? One more person.
My name's Barbara Barrett. I live at 6 Pinto Court. Unfortunately, my husband Christopher wasn't able to be here tonight, but I speak on behalf of both of us. I just want to say I'm feeling like someone mentioned to me, Groundhog Day. We're here the third time to vote for the same thing. And we've been so clear on what we want our representatives who we pay taxes to represent us and take care of our city. We again have to come up and say we are for voting at large. Again. It's just, we don't want to keep going through this. I don't understand why we can't just make the decision that the people of Edgewood have made really clear that's what they want. It's not making sense to me that our council can't just get together and do what they've been paid to do by the city, the people in Edgewood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. I think we will move on. Nobody else raising hands. Next, we have action items. Discussion, consideration, and action on Resolution 2021-13, Town of Edgewood election resolution. Council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we pass Resolution 2021-13.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2021-13. Any discussion?
Councilor Abraham, did you get the changes that you needed in here?
I did. If you look at the fourth whereas, it says, whereas inasmuch as this will be the initial election of commissioners under the commission form of government, I added all commissioners shall be voted on at large. That was what I included in there. I didn't change anything in the next whereas. In the following one, it says, whereas the governing body recognizes the town population under the most recent census data of 2010 as less than 10,000, which under subsection A of section 3-14-6 NMSA 1978 does not require voting by single member districts. And then the other thing I did was add that we need to vote for one municipal judge for the town of Edgewood.
And then the eligible person residing within the district boundaries, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then this part, refresh my memory in the fourth whereas paragraph, is it that 3 commissioners have the 2-year term and 2 4-year term?
Yes.
That's exactly the way it is in statute?
Yes.
Okay.
And it does talk about that decision will be determined by lot, so that when the 5 commissioners are elected, they'll draw straws or cut cards or something to see who gets the long terms and who gets the short terms.
Okay. Also, Mayor Pro Tem, have we heard anything from any of the state agencies or the county clerk?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay. All right. Any other information for us to consider?
Not that I have, not that's been given to me.
Okay. Just checking to see if there was any other factors we needed to know about. Any concerns by your legal counsel on this?
None for me. Like you said, it complies with the, excuse me, sorry, it complies with the statute for the terms of the first elected commissioners, and it includes all the required elements for proclamation.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a few comments.
Certainly. Go ahead, Councilor Holly.
I have given this matter a lot of thought, and I'd like to review some of the facts. A special election was held last year, and the proposition to organize the town of Edgewood under the commission manager form of government was approved. As required, the town established 5 voting districts at the cost of $18,878 paid to Research and Polling Incorporated. And that doesn't include the cost of the election. That was just the work that Research and Polling did. So Research and Polling had to use 2010 census data because the 2020 census data was not available. Consequently, the districts will have to be reviewed and possibly reconfigured next year in 2022. I believe that the commissioners should represent the districts in which they live, and that's part of this resolution. But I also believe that the voters within each district should be the constituency to vote for their representative. I am opposed to at-large voting because it allows for special interest groups to pack the commission with their candidates to the detriment of neighborhood or district representation. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else? I'll call a vote. Counselor Abraham.
Aye.
Counselor Holly.
Nay.
Counselor Jaramillo.
Aye.
I vote nay. This resolution dies for lack of a majority. Next on the agenda, consideration action on Resolution 2021-14, Town of Edgewood Budget Adjustments. Council, we have before us the budget resolution authorizing the budget adjustments for the end of fiscal year 2021. Mr. Torres?
Yes, Mayor, Council. Excuse me. So these budget adjustments are just to reflect the year-to-date actuals. So as you can see, and this is one thing that will come up again later on final budget, but if you look specifically at the GRT options for what was budgeted to what the final budget was, an increase of $391,000, so a lot more an additional revenue brought in there. Same thing with state shared. Another one that came up that's really big, $116,000, but that one, there's a formula for that, and I've always kind of just budgeted the $90,000, which is the base that any municipality under 10,000 receives. And so last year, I think last year we brought in like an additional $200,000. This one's just $116,000, but it's still additional amount. But just to keep that number safe, I would put 90. But the total increase on the revenues to the general fund, $1,076,720. On the general fund expenditure side, the finance and administration. So we technically didn't need a budget adjustment in this line, in this section, but there were two items that I felt we probably needed to do. The first one was the DFA CARES Act grant that we received for $50,000. So we did receive that, and I put that in. And then the remaining one was just the election cost, $27,633. Just so that those two are in there. The fire protection portion, this one's directly correlated with the increase in GRT, since we do give a portion of our increment to Santa Fe County for our fire services. If our GRT goes up, then the amount we pay them goes up as well.
Can I pause you for just a second? I'm sorry, I was so disgusted about this last vote that I missed what you said at the beginning of the finance and administration increase. I heard you say election, right? The $77,000 increase.
So of that, $50,000 was the CARES Act funding that we received, and then the $27,633 was for basically the direct election cost. So that was paid to AES and Santa Fe County.
Okay, thank you.
Once again, lodger's tax is just another one to reflect the actual year-to-date revenue. I think a big portion of our lodger's tax revenue this past year, even though we had COVID, places were on lockdown, both the RV park and the hotel were really full because of all the wind farm workers that have been here for, I think, phase one. I think they're probably going to continue to be here for a few years. So I think our lodging industry is going to, at least with respect to the RV park and the hotel, from what I hear from both of them, they're planning on still being full. Animal shelter, this one, we've always just kind of done this as the end of the year budget adjustment. $1,646 were donated to the animal shelter fund. Property tax debt levy, it was just the amount, it increased $2,061 for that portion. This is another one that we've traditionally left kind of blank budgetary-wise. The cell tower escrow fund, we did see an uptake in activity this year on the revenue side and a little bit on the expenditure. And this is usually when like AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon want to come in and do some upgrades to the tower, they've got to pay an additional amount. So I think this one was just directly related to them adding new 5G devices on that tower. But other than that, that's all the year-end adjustments that are required.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2021-14, a budget resolution authorizing budget adjustments for year end.
I'll second. Any further discussion? Council, how do you vote? Councilor Holly?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We have a budget resolution. Next on the agenda, action, consideration, discussion. Town of Edgewood fourth quarter finance report.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council. So I know there was the sheet on the front, which basically said the fourth quarter budget figures will change once DFA approval is received. We did receive approval, but it did not change on the budgeted amount. So if you would go to that the subsequent pages on the report, those adjustment columns were not populated for whatever reason. However, it does not impact our actual expenditures. Those are accurate and are year to date for expenditures. And I guess just one reason I want to bring that to attention. And I was hoping that this report would change. So I should have put page numbers. I do apologize. But if you go to page, I guess it would be the second page at the top. It ends with 5,800 capital purchases, showing that we are 59,161 over budget in that line item. That one is for purchases and, excuse me one sec. And if you were to go back and look at our budget resolution 2021-05, where we did the increases for like the library shelving, the equipment and machinery, that specific line item, equipment and machinery in the maintenance department, we did an increase of 92,656, which is not reflected on this quarterly. So that's why I wanted to kind of let you guys know that we did do the necessary adjustments. They are in. We are not over budget on those ones. It's just for whatever reason, when DFA approved it, it's not showing on the adjustments portion. So back to the fourth quarter report. So you can see we started the year with cash 1,690 plus our investments. We brought in 1,690,000. I don't know that's one that said that number. Our revenue side, we brought in on the general fund $6,086,599. We had budgeted transfers out of $876,000 and expenditures of $4,179,958, with a balance of ending cash balance of $2,980,678 in the general fund. And then the other funds, corrections, that's the one basically, the revenues brought in for that are directly related to court fines. And this is something really has no bearing here on the budget portion, but I'd like you guys to consider in the future lobbying maybe our representatives for it. But we, every time someone goes to court and they pay these fines, they have to pay these fines and the town puts this in this fund. And traditionally what we've done is we've used that to house prisoners, and that's how we pay for it. Well, since the constitutional amendment now, where we're actually not keeping prisoners anymore, so we're really not paying anything. So, and this is, once again, this is personal opinion, but I think we should probably have the legislature look at repealing those fines, since we're essentially building up a fund balance that we'll never do anything with. We're not now. Like if you arrest someone for DWI or something like that, they get released, on their own recognizance. Typically, as soon as someone can come pick them up. We're no, that was typically when the town would have an arrest, they would stay up there and then we would pay those fees to the jail out of this fund. We're not doing that anymore. So just something, food for thought for the future. Lodgers tax, once again, we brought in some pretty substantial revenue. Streets, with the equipment purchases, we're leaving that fund with a whopping 34 cents. The recreation fund, so this is the buy a brick fund that is sitting in there. That number hasn't changed since I've been employed with the town. The other special revenue, so this is essentially the two funds that the town had set up in, I want to say 2017 budget year, where we were putting $20,000 aside each year for a terminal leave fund, and then we set up $20,000 a year for kind of an emergency, like if equipment breaks or something, we'll have that there. And then every year, at least with respect to the terminal leave fund portion, when we do the time buyback from employees, this is where we take the funding away out of for that. Capital projects, once again, this will be the bridge and the various capital outlay projects that we have. Once we do figure out, like with the current capital outlay, like the new $940,000 for wastewater treatment plant and stuff like that. Once that's actually discovered and figure out what the town plans to do with it, then we can budget for those projects as well. Geo obligation bond, once again, that's self-explanatory. Water sewer enterprise fund, once again, that one's always been kind of a subsidy. You can see this year, total transfers $134,375 for the wastewater fund. So in all, we started the year town-wide with $3,322,874, and we're ending the year with $5,025,705.
So Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
I will make a motion to pass budget resolution number 2021-15, a budget resolution approving the fourth quarter financial report for fiscal year 2020-2021 with the following change. In the paragraph that says, "Now therefore be it hereby resolved," immediately following attachment A, insert the following language: "Except as it relates to any legal fees within this report."
I'll second that.
Sort of discussion. I had requested numerous times to see certain detail on legal fees and was not ever provided that information. So I cannot vote on something that says, whereas I'm hereby certifying that the contents in this report are true and correct to the best of my knowledge. I can't do that. So that's why I'm inserting that in parentheses, that phrase.
I don't know that we can do that because that's part of our expenditures. So that's an interesting idea. Legal counsel, can you weigh in on that? I don't know that we can do that.
Seems like a bit of a conflict to have legal counsel talk about legal fees
Well, this is a legal question, so,
for your attorney.
well, it's your attorney as well.
It is
This
not my
person-
attorney. That is
We're
not my attorney's
We're not
deal.
discussing the attorney. This is the town's attorney. So, and I've asked the town's attorney for an opinion on this amendment.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and councilors. As the town attorney, I believe that we have discussed the concerns about the attorney-client privilege and or the work product protection for some of those details of the bills that you're asking for. Nonetheless, putting aside the argument, it's my understanding that this is what has been spent. And if there's a dispute about what has been spent, I think this amendment would be appropriate. But if there's no dispute about what has been spent, then I think it should be approved without the amendment.
So, council, we have a motion with an amendment to the resolution and a second. Could you repeat your additional language, please?
Sure. So right after attachment A, just insert, even in parentheses is fine, except as it relates to any legal fees within this report.
Except as it,
Relates to any legal fees within this report.
okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve Budget Resolution 2021-15, adding, I guess in parentheses, adding in parentheses after attachment A, except as it relates to any legal fees within this report.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I have a question for the Clerk Treasurer.
Certainly.
Mr. Torres, can you tell me or tell us what that edit, would it be accepted by the state government? Or what do they require from us at the end of this fiscal year?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Council, so I believe it would be accepted, but what is required of the governing body by DFA is a resolution approving the fourth quarter report, just so the so DFA is sure that I have shared with you the fourth quarter report and you are seeing the numbers, because it's my understanding that you need to see the actual ending balances and the numbers, and that's what gets reflected in the next resolution, which is the final budget. Those numbers need to go in. So I believe they would accept it, but yeah, budget resolution is required for submittal of the final budget. Or sorry, quarterly report resolution approving it is required.
Any further discussion, council? Council, how do you vote? Councilor Harmia?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
Councilor Holly?
Nay.
I don't like this wording in there because I don't think it is going to really mean anything, so I'll vote aye so that we have a fourth quarter budget resolution. I'd certainly like DFA to move forward for us regardless of the concerns. Next on the agenda, we have consideration, action, and discussion on Resolution 2021-16, Town of Edgewood, final budget resolution. This would be the final budget resolution for fiscal year 21-22. I'll stand for a motion.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2021-16, a resolution adopting the Town of Edgewood final budget for fiscal year 2021-2022.
I'll second for discussion. Council, shall we?
Question, did we ever hear from the wastewater manager?
Mayor Pro Tem Council, yes, I did hear from Mr. Hall. He unfortunately could not be here tonight. Now there is a couple things that he said he would like to see added at the wastewater plant. And he said this will definitely change once the screens get in, but that is the first major component that is going to be going in, which is already budgeted for and part of the final budget. And we said that will completely change the operation of the plant once we have those screens in and start getting that stuff out of there. But the two things he did say he would like to see added to this budget, an inline chlorine analyzer. So just another thing that's added to the SCADA. My understanding, this thing will analyze and provide detailed data as to the levels of chlorine in the water, since we are using that for treatment. And then the other thing he would like to see is hiring a second person at the plant. Now, just with respect to that, so the amount we're advertising for that is $32.85 an hour to try and pull in a level 3. And we are directly competing, and keep in mind, if this were probably any other small town in New Mexico that wasn't in such close proximity to the city of Albuquerque, we'd probably be able to snag a level 4 fairly easily. We're having trouble just getting a level 3. So that is his ask, and I'm not sure what amount to put in there to try and attract one. But those were essentially the two things he did say. But he also did say that operationally, the operations of the plant are going to change once we receive the screens in there. He said budget-wise right now, we've had enough to repair anything that comes up broken. We're able to put in additional membranes as they come in. We're budgeting on this for essentially 2 cassettes worth of membranes every year. So we are able to kind of handle everything operationally speaking. Now, we do have a lot, like I said, on the capital side of major improvements to the plant. With respect to our capital outlay funding, that is yet to be decided what needs to happen. And I think the big thing on that needs to be, basically that decision should probably be made once the new spine screens come in. I mean, I know you guys authorized us to go out and get them. I believe the screens are ordered. And as soon as they come in, we'll have the bids out for the contractor to actually install them.
What did he say about the lift pumps and the asset management plan that we adopted in the previous administration that's never been addressed by this administration at all?
A lot of the things in the asset management plan have already been replaced due to failures. The screens, the belt press was replaced. When we immediately took possession from EPCOR, we replaced one blower that was broken, and then another blower went out as soon as the new one went in, just kind of in the nick of time. We have one current of the lift station pumps that is being repaired. And probably will repair the second one, which is essentially rebuilding the pump once that one comes out. So those items are being addressed. They are being taken care of. And what I did mean is we were actually triaging the plant. I mean, it would be nice to say, okay, this year we're going to replace this, we're going to replace this, but due to the nature of the plant, it is triage. Which is about to fail, what is going to do it. I mean, it is great to have the plan, but the plan is meaningless if other components are failing.
Right. It would be nice to have our wastewater plant operator come and discuss those things with the governing body, which has not happened in a very long time. And again, once again, he appears to be the only department head that does not regularly make monthly reports, nor bother coming to our budget meeting. I would once again ask that we replace him.
Mr. Torres, I'd like to ask, do you have a cost on the inline chlorine analyzer?
Yeah, approximate cost on that with installation is about $8,000.
Thank you.
But no cost on a second person?
I'm sorry, Council, what was that?
No cost on what it would cost for the second person?
Well, Mayor and Council, we're currently advertising $32.85 an hour, so I'm not sure what it would take to.
So as part of this budget that you're asking us to approve, there's absolutely nothing included for the wastewater plant. Additionally. Or am I missing it on this report?
Counselor, I think that was being discussed right now, that the $8,000 for the chlorine analyzer would probably be good, but it's on us to consider if we want to offer more than $32.85 an hour for a level 3 operator if we can find one. I don't know what the going rate for a level 3 operator is.
We already have a second person for wastewater, don't we?
No, we do not.
We have Mike Garcia, who has not even achieved his level 1 certification yet.
No, I understand that, but he's still under that umbrella, right, in that department? Is his salary charged already to wastewater?
No, Mr. Hall is out of professional services since he is a contract operator.
No, I'm talking about the
Mr.
position
Garcia.
that we do have.
Mike Garcia.
Yeah, Mr. Garcia is currently in there, and we have a second position that is budgeted for that we just can't fill.
Okay, which is really Mr. Hall's position that he's filling in.
Yes, in the past it was Mr. Butler, who was previously employed with the town.
Okay, so this wouldn't be, so this is something that's already existing in the budget, it's just that he's being paid out of contractual services instead of salaries.
Correct.
So if we found someone, there would be no need for the contractual services amount.
Correct. Probably some sort of crossover time just to let the new operator, the new basically chief plant operator know here's what we've done, here's what's going on, here are the issues we need to be aware of, and then phase out at some point in time.
Okay, so at that point in time, we could do a bar.
Correct.
Just transferring the line item. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood it correctly. And then I did, I sent an email, but I don't think you emailed me on this. I was wondering how much additional from last year we need to divvy up. And then also this that's printed for us here, does it have changes already embedded into it yet or not yet? Is this last year's budget?
Mayor Pro Tem Council, so the interim budget that was submitted is essentially last year's budget. Now it does reflect the increase to personnel services and the other changes like insurance increases, basically all the main personnel ones. And at the time, revenue-wise, I did kind of up the amount based on the third quarter report. But now that we have the fourth quarter numbers, so and I've always kind of done this conservatively when it comes to respect to budgeting the revenue, because I'd rather, like we did just earlier, add more to the budget with respect to revenue than try and mid-year trying to carve back the expenditures. So I've always kind of been more conservative. So that's why in my email I did also say I think you could safely add an additional $357,000 to the general fund in GRT. Now, if you're going to go purely off of year-to-date, so compare year-to-year and budget the same amount as last year, we did bring in an additional $581,000 in GRT over what was at the interim budget. Also in the interim budget, just from revenue to expenditure, there was $64,362 that is available as well. So, like I said, I would feel comfortable with the total amount increase in GRT-wise to the general fund of $421,000. If you factor in the 64. However, I will qualify that I do think the town will start seeing additional GRT well above what we're receiving right now, starting in September. Once we start receiving the internet sales tax, I don't know about any of you, but my current Amazon orders have increased by about $20 every time I order just on the additional tax. So I do know that the state at least is requiring that tax to be paid. But I do think that we'll relay it to additional GRT for the town. How much, I truly don't know. We spoke with the league at several meetings that they hosted virtually. They really think the same thing, that the amount of GRT for the municipalities, specifically the small municipalities, is going to go up substantially, but they have no idea how to predict how much. Because if you recall, the amount that the state was giving us when they were the only ones collecting GRT, they were giving us a percentage based on I think they allocated like $270 million for the entire year, and then they were dividing that amongst all the municipalities and giving us a percentage based on our 2010 census. So for Edgewood, that was a 3,000 population. So, like I said, GRT-wise, I think we are going to see an increase come September, but how much, I really have no idea what that number is going to be. So for our purposes here, I'd be comfortable adding another 420,000 into the GRT. If you'd like to go up higher, you can go to what year to date, and that would be adding an additional total. If you add in that 64,000 plus the 581, that'd be 646,000. If you want to do that, but it's your decision on there. The infrastructure line item, which is the other capital projects on the budget, over what was budgeted, there's an additional 154,000 or up to 154,000 that could be added in there GRT-wise as well. So all things to consider. And also keep in mind that they did change the way GRT is now distributed to us. So everything that the town previously had earmarked, we're having to manually take out. Essentially what they're saying is now our GRT is calculated by the amount that we can do without referendum and the amount that's been done by referendum. And so that's how we get it. So we'll no longer receive GRT based upon here's how much is the municipal amount, here's how much is environmental, here's how much is infrastructure. So we're having to derive that from the total amount collected and kind of appropriate it to the funds as the governing bodies in the previous years had allocated. So I guess turn it back to you guys and just say, what would you, of these items, what would you like to put in? I guess if I had to make a recommendation, bare minimum, I think the vehicles for the different departments, especially the maintenance department, we did add another individual there, and so unless we're going to have them two to a truck, and as we said earlier, from the public, doing the roads, doing other things, so you kind of don't want to tie them down just to one area. We have 3 of them now in there, so we can let them go around. I think some of the stuff the police department asks, the additional equipment, the vehicle for animal control, or we're going to be facing a situation where we're probably paying more on repairs than it would be just to purchase a new vehicle. Same thing with the planning and zoning vehicle. But the rest of that, I defer to you guys as to what would be your pleasure.
Oh, thank you for that answer. I heard you say that from this that's printed in LGBMS, you used last year's budget, but then you added in things like insurance, the revenue increases, and personnel services increases. What did you include in the personnel service increases?
So one of the increases was actually the only increase on that, minus the additional employees that were, I guess there's 2, the additional employees that were added. So that would be the one on the road department, God bless you, and the one on the maintenance department, and then the judge did give one of his employees a raise based on the fact that the employee achieved, I guess, is now a certified translator, which I guess you can't just speak Spanish to be a translator. You actually have to be certified in it. So the Edgewood courts now have a certified translator, and the judge compensated for that certification.
Okay, but those are things that already happened in the past and were approved?
Well, they weren't part of, I guess, with the exception of the judge, that was the only one that wasn't approved by this governing body, but the other ones were approved by this governing body last year and weren't part of the original budget last year.
The original budget, okay, gotcha. So I'm just trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Okay, so now we know what we're starting with, basically, is last year's plus these things. And then you're saying that you feel comfortable increasing general fund 420,000, right?
Correct.
And then we could go up to 646 if we wanted to, but we don't have to, right?
Right, and that's just, like I said, I've always kind of been conservative with respect to the revenue, because once again, like I said, I would much rather say, hey, look, we're adding $1 million to the town versus, oh, look, we overshot it. Let's take back those expenditures and try and stop it. And
oh gosh, that's always, no, it's very wise to be conservative with these, and I think most clerks and other administrators are. So, okay. Then you also said for other capital projects, we could add 154,000.
Correct.
Okay.
To that line item. And also something of note that I originally in my email told you we need to add into the budget, but as of right now I'm not able to add into LGBMS, so we'll probably have to come back later and do a bar for is going to be the 750-some thousand that we received for the ARP, for the American Rescue Plan funding. So we did receive it last Friday, but we don't have the ability to set up those line items yet, so I can't add it in the budget right now, so we'll have to come back later to do a line item adjustment for it to actually create that fund and put the funding in there.
Okay. But we could consider that in our discussions here tonight for just knowing we have that money. And I know technically you can't put it in the system quite yet, but we can, just be thinking, okay, there's 750,000 for capital projects or.
Well, and that's the other thing with the ARP funding. We're still trying to hammer down what specifically it can be used for.
Yeah. What's allowable and what's not.
Keep in mind, this is just that's the first half of it, and the town will receive the second half, which is going to be another, I think I want to say it's 753,000. I don't remember exactly the amount, but we'll receive the second half in 2023 as well.
Oh, 2023?
Correct. Mm-hmm. That was the way it was written into law.
Okay. All right. So then it looks like we are, that's probably what council should first decide is how much do we feel comfortable adding into the budget. And then once we get that number, we can allocate from the wish list.
And also, council, once again, so you guys will have, give me 1 second. Starting fund balances as well. So, and once again, you guys can do whatever you like, but with respect to reoccurring costs, so that would be any employee or things of that nature, to take those out of, I guess I would like to say, that additional amount you're talking about, but you do also have fund balance in different funds if you'd like to dip into those as well. And that would, my recommendation on those would be the one-time purchases, the equipment, the thing that's not going to be a reoccurring cost. Now there will be, of course, reoccurring maintenance with those, but the big purchases. So on the general fund side, you're looking at starting with $2,720,000. And then other capital projects, I think those are the two big ones, $1,430,000.
What page are you looking at, Juan?
That's going to be, so if you were to take the cash balance on the fourth quarter report, so with the general fund, if you take that cash balance and subtract out the investments, that's where you come up with the $2,720,000 for your beginning balance for general fund. And then since there's not a reserve on the capital projects one, that's where you get the $1,403,618.41.
Okay. Okay, so just to move this along, I guess I would ask council, how much do we feel comfortable adding to the budget as far as GRT? Do we want to leave it the same as last year? Do we want to increase to what the clerk feels comfortable at 420? Do we want to go beyond that? And then the same thing with the other capital projects, the 154,000.
I would not want to go beyond what he's comfortable with.
Okay.
I think that sounds reasonable. We should definitely move it.
So, just to do round numbers, do you want to do 420 and 150? Or 400 and 150?
Let's split the difference, make it 410.
410.
150.
110 and 150?
150, yeah.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
Mayor Pro Tem Council, so there is another amount to put in a completed space. I know we've discussed it. It's the 50,000 youth programming. So we can add the 50,000 in there, and then you can allocate that as you like. But just we need to add the 50,000 as well.
Oh, thank you. That's helpful. Okay. Okay, so I guess for me, just to get one thing out of the way right away, I would like to make a motion for the roads department to add the 2 full-time employees' salary and benefits so that we have that second crew. And let's I guess start with that motion.
Can I add a friendly amendment to your motion?
Sure, yeah.
I would like to see the paving repairs on Frost, Quail, Dinkle, McCall, Venus, and I think we ought to talk about the paving of Appaloosa and Square H as well. But we can talk about that. We don't have to add that if you care not to.
Okay.
But I think if we have 2 crews, we can get this done.
Right.
And I would really, really like to see these roads fixed.
Okay.
It would benefit the entire community in some sense or another, because people travel on all of these roads.
So if we add the 2 employees, that's roughly 140. So we're eating up 140,000 out of our 410. Okay, which is fine. I'm okay with that. But then I think the next thing that's been on the list the longest, from me looking backwards in time, from when I was first elected, I think, was Appaloosa. So I think the difference between chip seal and paving is not that great. So I would be open to an amendment for adding the paving of Appaloosa, which is 146. So then that's 286, right, out of our 410. But we have a lot of other departments to still cover.
If we hire those 2 employees, are we going to need any of this equipment to have 2 full crews?
That's true too.
Mayor Pro Tem Council, so yes, right now we do have 2 dump trucks. One of them's not in the greatest state of repair. We do have 2 water trucks. Same thing with our other water truck. It's kind of our backup. The tank is leaking and is going to need repaired. Same thing with we do have a grader. We just replaced one, and the one we were using is going to be currently being our backup. It could be used, but it does have a lot of hours on it, so it could fail as well. So just keep that in mind. I think adding the crews, probably start looking at needing to add additional equipment. Maybe not necessarily this year, but definitely in future years.
So there isn't anything that they must have to have the 2 crews, like that they just completely lack right now?
Well, they do completely lack a roller. We only have one roller as it sits right now.
Okay. So the roller could come out of cash balance. Council, I don't know how you feel about using up cash balance, but that's a one-time expenditure, so it's not recurring. We have to save our 410 for what's recurring, like the salaries.
Paving Appaloosa would not be recurring either.
We could even use the 150 of other capital projects for Appaloosa.
Okay.
Okay, should I try a motion?
Go right ahead.
To
Councilman.
get this part out, okay. All right, so let me revise my motion to state that for the roads department, I make a motion to add the 2 full-time employee salaries and benefits for those full-time employees coming out of operational GRT. That is the increase. Also, paving of Appaloosa for the 146,793 out of the 150 that we're adding in for other capital projects, and a roller, which they do not have yet, for 133,381.88 from beginning cash balance.
Okay, I'll second that. We have a motion and a second to approve, and I'm going to stumble on repeating all of
It's
it.
okay, you don't have to.
Does everyone understand what we are voting on? And the funds from which those expenditures will come? I see nodding of heads. Councilors, how do you vote? Councilor Holly?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Now, we didn't have in there the paving repairs. So I didn't hear the paving repairs except for Appaloosa. What about the chip sealing on Frost Road and Quail Trail and Dinkle and McCall and Venus?
Do you think maybe once we're able to use the 750 ARP funding that we can budget it then?
My understanding is that we also have a project ready to go on the ground for church. And that now that that funding is here, as soon as we find out whether or not we can do it, will make a difference on how that project gets achieved. In other words, will it have trails, will it have this and that and the other, or will it simply be a paved road? And I think that's something we'll talk about in the not too far distant future.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council, if I may. So do keep in mind, we did also submit for the local government road fund, Frost, Quail, Dinkle, McCall, and Venus. We did submit and apply TF funding for those, and we will not find out on that funding until September. So that is, there is the potential that the state might kick some funding down for those. It's not guaranteed, but we did apply for it, and the earliest we'll find out, I believe, is mid-September, is the last thing I heard from Mr. Carr.
Okay, so what did you have in mind as far as a funding source, Mayor Pro Tem? Let's say Frost, for example.
Well, Frost would be besides paving of Square H, Frost would be the probably most important and the most costly. It is a one-time expenditure for the moment. We will have to do this again. I think the last time it was done was, gosh, it was like 2008-9, somewhere in there. So, whatever investment we do make it has some really decent longevity. That road's looking pretty rough. I would say that that we take some out of our balance, because we've ended the year quite handily, and I don't know that we want to spend down our capital projects, but we can certainly afford some out of our general operating and our total balances. Maybe we can take it out of a couple of different spots.
How soon will we know about the road funds?
Mid-September, Mayor Council, is what I was last told by Mr. Cobb.
Okay.
I guess just to kind of go back with what Mr. Williams was saying, if you'd like to get that done this year, the time to get them in for mobilization is now. If not, it would be something that would be put back to next spring and then get on the schedule. And there is the potential that it might not even happen until after the fiscal year end as well. So just keep it in mind. I mean, it is something that can, which is not a big deal. It could still be budgeted for again next year if it doesn't happen right away.
Mayor Pro Tem, I do like your suggestion about hopping on Frost Road to do that paving and repair now. And maybe the others, could wait on what happens in September. But I think that's a big arterial going east and west that we should probably take care of.
Now, because didn't we applied for that, right, for Frost?
Yes, we applied for funding for Frost, Quail, Deacle, McCall, and West Venus.
Okay. So if that comes to fruition, we can still use those funds.
So long as the repairs are not done before the
Right.
before the funding's approved.
Okay.
Well, I think we need to work on Frost Road, so I think that is an important one. I think the other ones, maybe we could wait for, see if we get any of the funding, but I think we should go ahead and commit to Frost Road.
I think we could do that, and I know there's lead time as far as going out to bid and timing on the contractors' schedules. I mean, we saw that last year.
Church.
Council, I'll remind you that Chuck has already gone out and gotten quotes from a state contractor, and so we already know that amount. There's no need for bids. It's just a matter of accepting and saying go and saying we're going to pay for it.
Getting on their schedule.
Yep.
I'm really hesitant to use general fund money if there's a chance we may be getting road funds. I mean, I feel like we could approve it and then, schedule it for latest possible date. But, I mean, I don't want to repair that now and then we're awarded money and we can't backfill. General fund monies are very precious. They're hard to come by. So, but that's just me. If there's a chance we can get different funding for it and we find out in September, then I'm more inclined to wait and see if we do.
I'll remind council from the history of Church Road that we have applied for funding for church repeatedly for over 10 years and finally received it. Over and over and over again we applied. This happened with Frost as well. My understanding is that the last time that Frost was repaired, we had applied for road funding to repair it in, I think it was 2000 or 2001, and we finally were awarded funding to be able to do the job in 2009. So I don't know. I don't know how flush the state is. I don't know how our legislative group is going to help us with this. Hopefully they do. But I'm not really super enthused by the likelihood of us being awarded all of it. The other thing is the state seems to award funding for projects without any kind of seeming logic. They could award for Venus and nothing else, or maybe Quail Trail, or maybe Venus, maybe Frost, maybe two of them. I don't know. So it's kind of a crapshoot. But if you'd like to wait, we can certainly do that. I'd hate to wait for another freeze and go through another winter season with Frost as cracked and broken as it is currently.
I'll go ahead and say again, I do think Frost Road would be important to complete. We've got the funds to take care of that one. And if we do get other funds from the state, we've got a whole list, of other roads that we can apply the other funding to.
Would they let us?
Well, they're already on the list,
Well,
the others that you
If
mentioned.
they award Frost, you might have to do it for Frost, right?
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Council, so that's actually exactly the scenario that happened last go-round, which was the last award we received was the 2019 funds. So we had actually, it was Frost, Quail, Dinkle, McCall, Venus, and Edgewood 7 were on the list, and we sent them in our ranking, Frost being number 1 then, as it is now, sent in our ranking, and then Edgewood 7 was on there, and I think it was like second to the last from the bottom. They awarded us Edgewood 7 only, and the funds were only allowed for Edgewood 7. We asked if we could switch it, apply it to another road. They said no. So if it's the local government road fund, I don't believe they'll let us change it.
Well, you guys can make a motion if you want. I'm not in favor of that. I think it's
So we've been hearing from the people they want roads, so
definitely
it would be a good faith
definitely.
effort to get one knocked off.
We have Appaloosa so far.
I would make a motion that we go ahead and take the $500,000 to pave and repair Frost Road out of the general fund.
I'll
to
second.
Get that done.
So we have a motion and a second to repair Frost Road using funds from our general fund. How do you vote, council?
Just one more comment. I would just ask, if possible, that we schedule that for after such time that we might know. So changes could be made if needed.
I think the likelihood that the paving crews will mobilize before the middle of September is very unlikely.
Contractors are probably booked for months.
Probably.
Okay.
So again, how do you vote, council? Councilor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Councilor Abraham.
Aye.
Councilor Holly.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So thank you, council. How will we proceed? We've now taken a little bit out of our added GRTs. We've taken a little bit out of our general operating fund. We've agreed to add a couple of employees, pave a road, and purchase a roller. The other items that I have heard are of great need are, in particular, the vehicles for maintenance and for animal control. Although I don't see exactly where the animal control vehicle is. I think
It
it's
is.
probably in...
No, it's under animal control, new AC unit.
Oh, there it is, AC unit. I was thinking air conditioning.
And I think the cat cages need to be
Yeah, we
like
definitely
yesterday.
need
Yeah, those cages are
That's-
definitely that's got to be
really
done.
high priority.
However, that's not a terribly large expense, and that, I think, goes without saying. We need to do something for that. That's become quite awful. So those are two things that I've heard are at pretty much the top of the list. How do you feel about that, council?
And where is this coming from? The funding?
I'm just saying that these are things that I've been told are priorities. So we are running on a very old vehicle for animal control, and we absolutely need another vehicle for maintenance.
And I would perhaps recommend the new code enforcement vehicle as well.
That's 3 vehicles totaling what? Let's see, 32.
Are there none to
89.
pass down from PD?
None that I know of right now. All the PD vehicles, I think, are being used.
Mayor, council, no. Actually, we're right where we need to be with vehicles.
We've got somebody, one of our officers who is returning from the military in September, so he'll take up that other one.
What do you do with them when you take them out of service, when you get new ones?
We have two options. We can either put them out for bid for sale, or we can also, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Torres, is sell them outright, and then the money floats back into the general fund.
And as Mayor Pro Tem Council, I guess historically since I've been here, if they haven't been damaged or abused too badly, we'll pass them down to other vehicles. So every single vehicle that we currently have to use is an old
Right, and
police vehicle.
that was past history. Every time we retired a vehicle, it went to one of the other departments, whether it be wastewater
Correct.
or maintenance or something like that. So I would like to continue that process rather than putting them up for bid. I think we can make use of them ourselves.
Do we have any that are close that need to be?
The SUVs that we have that, I don't know if you've driven by the police department, there's four. One is in decent running shape. Two of them they're gonna have to be towed off the lot, to be honest with you. They're in pretty bad shape. I mean, as far as getting them fixed, we'd have to take them in and see what the cost would be to see if it would be worth putting that kind of money back into it. And then if it is, I mean, I have no problem with giving back to town so they can be used elsewhere.
So there's one that's a possible, two that are and
Yes.
one that's a no?
Mayor Pro Tem Council Chief, how many pool vehicles do you have right now? So in case someone does get in an accident, what are your backups, or are those your backups?
Those are my backups. I've got one.
Mm-hmm. And the other two just need estimates?
Yes, I'd have to send them off to find out what it would cost. The one of them that I got estimated on was going to run us about, don't quote me on this, but it was going to be almost $5,000 to fix. And these vehicles are over 8 years old, if I'm correct.
It isn't too bad.
Well, if you've seen the way these vehicles are beat up, that's a lot.
So,
but I have no issue with that at all. I really don't.
just a real quick math, we're talking about 3 vehicles at $89,000 roughly. And this, of course, would be a one-time expense for right now. I mean, this is not a recurring cost.
Okay. So you want to take 3 new vehicles out of cash balance?
We could certainly take it out of cash balance, yes.
And would we, I'm just thinking of priority-wise, as far as our public safety.
Who would get one first?
Definitely, I mean, well, because they have to go quickly, they have to be reliable, they have to,
Mm-hmm.
Mayor Pro Tem Council, I guess with respect to that, is if they're approved, we'll order them. I know Chief has already ordered his vehicles already, just for the police department. But we're kind of at the mercy of the
There
chip
are no
shortage.
vehicles, yeah.
Yeah, so Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but they told us earliest, if we're lucky, will be late October for his new vehicles coming in. We have our one officer returning from the armed forces in October.
Okay, so when you get those in October, does that free any up?
That will actually bring me down. I'll have one back. Because I apologize. We've got the other officer that starts on Monday, and he'll take the spare one that we have now.
Okay.
And then I do have another one that can be repaired, in which I'll do so. And it'll be held over until Officer Campos returns back. And then as the units come in, I'll have the one extra. That's
And
what I
these
said.
will all be marked units, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's possible we don't need 3, we need 2? new?
Well, Mayor Pro Tem Council, I mean, there's not a request for additional police. I mean, those were already kind of part of the interim budget, the 2 new ones for police department. This was just for animal control, code enforcement, and maintenance.
And Mayor Pro Tem Council has respect for the animal control unit. It's got over 90,000 miles. It is getting to the point where it's becoming more costly than it is keeping. It's got radio issues, it's got light issues, it's got motor issues. It's on its last leg. And that's why the request. From my understanding, it's been around the town for quite some time.
What year is it?
I knew you could ask that.
Because my husband is currently driving a 2008 truck with well over 90,000 miles. 186,000 miles. And we just took it on vacation, so. But we do regular maintenance on it as well.
I did hear Tanya, when she was talking to us at the budget meeting, say that she would, she doesn't need a brand new one, that, getting one passed along would be fine. So maybe we just do the 2?
Look for something maybe less well used or something.
The 2 new and pass along one from PD in October.
Yes, and as Mr. Torres said, October is a long shot for us getting in by then.
Yeah.
We're probably looking November, December at best, as we've all heard, because of COVID and the chip shortage. That's what appears to be the biggest drawback to everything.
Well, right now there's a $5,000 premium on any truck that you try to get. So, if we could get past that, that would save us quite a lot of money.
The other thing I remember hearing Tanya say at the budget meeting was that as they drove the vehicle, they had parts flying off of it too. They were losing pieces. I don't know how long that's going to last.
That trim, it was just the trim around the windshield. But still, I know that she eventually needs one, right? Okay. 61. So if we did the 2, it would be 61,000.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess just to move this along, I'll make a motion to purchase the 2 new vehicles, one for maintenance and one for animal control, with the understanding when the others is replaced in PD, that one will go to P&Z and take the funds from beginning cash balance.
I'll second with a friendly amendment to add the cat cages at the shelter.
Yeah, cat cages.
Yes, I accept that amendment.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the purchase of 2 vehicles and to improve the cat cages at the shelter. Everyone understands the budget line item where that is being taken, and I will ask for a vote if no one has further discussion. Hearing none. Councillor Abraham.
Aye.
Councillor Holly.
Aye.
Councillor Jaramillo.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. So we've gotten that.
Something I would like to put forward for consideration is a raise for the employees. I know when Police Chief made his presentation, he was asking that we would consider that for the police. And I know at this time it's kind of hard to find new employees in that department because I think so many folks are leaving from police work. But I think I'd like to also consider pay raise for the entire staff, not just the police department. And I was wondering, Mr. Clerk Treasurer, if you could tell us, it looks to me like benefits, healthcare, costs are going up, and I'd kind of like to know what we could do to at least make the employees whole so that's not coming out of their pockets, that increase.
So, Mayor Pro Tem Council, so the insurances did go up 6% this year. And so roughly for our lowest paid employee, that translates to just under a 2%, basically to make them whole. But yeah, so the insurance did go up. Also do keep in mind, as we start competing with other places, not just with other municipalities, just locally. I mean, minimum wage has gone up $1, went up $1 this last year. It's going up $1 again. So keep that in mind as well. And then for next year, also keep in mind we're going to have our first big increase on PERA, and the employee portion is going to go up 2%, and the employer portion is going to go up 2% as well. And that was out of the legislation passed, not this year, but the previous year, 2020. So there will be some additional increases. Now on the insurance side, the city of Albuquerque took over, I guess their pool. It was formerly ran by Presbyterian, and so now the increase after the city of Albuquerque had a year under its belt, they didn't do anything the previous year. That's why we have the 6% this year. And essentially, my understanding, what they're going to start doing is treating every member entity in that pool as its own individual. So depending on our claims and what's being used, our percentage might fluctuate different compared to others moving forward. That's my understanding with the insurance increases and how the city of Albuquerque is going to handle them moving forward.
I'd like to make a motion to propose a 5% pay increase for all staff. Human resources are our most valuable resource, and we need to make sure that we take care of our employees. You can't put a price on their experience and knowledge that they bring to work.
I'll go ahead and second that for discussion. Do I hear any discussion?
I think that's high. I would consider 2.5 to 3, but not more than that.
I am concerned that we haven't seen evaluations, and I don't think we received our pay study that we budgeted for last year, right?
Right.
Like 30,000 that we budgeted.
Mayor Pro Tem Council, correct? The salary study was not completed last year.
Was it contracted for?
No, we could not get the contractor to, actually 3 that I reached out to, just with COVID restrictions. I couldn't bring anyone to come in and do it.
I think we need to hold off for that information. I've been asking for that since 2015 and have yet to get a study done yet. We may need to give them much more money, we may need to give them much less, we may need to look at positions.
The organizational structure could change.
It has already.
Under the commission. Well, yeah, and it has already. And then where are we at on evaluations? Because that's required under policy.
Mayor Pro Tem Council, so we're doing our next quarterly set of evaluations, which hopefully will be complete mid-August. And they are done. I mean, once again, we're trying to move to a quarterly. I think we did them twice last year, and we're still moving forward with them.
We didn't have evals last quarter or any quarter since I've been on council.
Council, I'll remind you that we're not doing this as pay for performance. This is a step increase as far as a broad brush for the entire staff. It's not a pay for.
Right.
It's not a. We don't do that.
Which is why we need the salary study and why we requested it last year and why we budgeted for it last year.
If you've been watching the grocery store and the prices of various things, you'll notice that there has been a substantial increase over the last several months. And according to the head of the Federal Reserve, we're probably going to see that increase for quite some time and probably no decrease. although the inflation rate, the rate at which it increases, may decrease. But right now, I think the inflation rate is well beyond a 2.5% pay raise.
I know, but I also understand that my Social Security is not going up 5 or 10% either. And so I am coping with all of the inflation, and my insurance goes up and everything else, and my retirement's not increasing.
We did provide 5% increase last year.
Did we provide 5% last year?
Yes.
We did.
Yes, Mayor Council.
So, Mr. Torres, are there any employees who would currently fall under the wage guidelines that we have been given from the state after the wage increases by the state take effect?
Once they're complete, we will have probably a couple positions that are starting, like our new maintenance employee.
We typically discuss that specific information in closed session.
I was just asking generally. I didn't want to know who.
We can't
Mayor Council, I
discuss-
stated a position, not a name.
No, but we talked about raises previously.
Okay, I'm just trying to clarify that, if we do make an increase, we could avoid that issue in the future and probably retain some employees over the long term. But it is the council's pleasure, which we do. We have a motion and a second for a 5%. Does anybody wish to counter that or offer another resolution or another amendment?
I just really don't know where we're at in the different levels, especially with the big increase last year when most of the governments were either hiring freezes or no raises or even letting people go. When we did 5% increase was very, very generous, I thought. And I'm just a little concerned that some of the positions may be completely either too high or too low. So we really do need to have that salary study done. And then I think from there, which shouldn't take too long, everybody's opened back up. Then from there, by the time that's done, then we can revisit it. And if it takes even longer, then I guess it would be the commission that decides what they want to do in the future.
Okay, I would make a motion to table employee raises until we get the pay plan study completed.
I'll second.
So a motion and a second to table any raises for employees until a pay plan is presented. Any further discussion? How do you vote, Council? Councilor Holly?
Nay.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
I vote nay. That will mean that motion dies for lack of a majority. The other motion and second is to apply a 5% pay raise for employees.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, may I amend my motion?
You may amend your motion.
I'd like to amend the motion to a 3% pay raise. I would hate to see staff have to go into their pockets to pay for more insurance.
Since I seconded that, I will second your amended motion to apply a 3% pay raise for all employees. Councilor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
I'm thinking things through as far as discussion.
Okay.
I do have a question, if
Sure.
that's okay.
That's fine.
So I know you said, Juan, that the insurance for maybe the lowest paid employee would be 2% of their pay. But how is that going to impact not just the lowest, but maybe an average or, you know, the whole range of salaries? How much is that increase going to impact?
Mayor and Council, I don't have that right in front of me, but I want to say it was like $30 a paycheck.
Okay. Okay. So 30 for everyone, approximately?
I guess it just depends because some employees don't have the health insurance, some don't have the dental, some don't have the other. I mean, so it just depends on the employee and what benefits they've signed on to.
Counselors, do you have this handout? It does show what the total would be at 3%.
I do. But it doesn't show the amount of benefits, which would also increase.
What is this?
That is the total cost, including benefits for
Oh.
a raise.
Okay. And what is this wage difference column here?
So the FY21 total wages and the FY22 total wages. So that's the total amount we budgeted for, and these are budgeted wages, I should say. That's the total amount that was budgeted for in FY21 and the total amount in FY22. So the big difference that you see on there between those two, once again, are the positions that you guys added throughout the year. Once again, judicial, you'll see the amount of wage difference that the judge added, and then of course the benefits difference.
And is there another way to accomplish this without just an across the board? Because, you know, typically at the school district, we didn't always just do across the board because, for example, the superintendent had a very large salary, so then if you take 3%, then that person's going to get even larger than anybody else. So we would do them in you know, bands or, you know, different categories. So is there another way to accomplish covering the increase in insurance other than just a 3% across the board?
So, Mayor and Council, I believe this is so since we don't have anything specific in our personnel policy, which calls out how wages and stuff are going to be handed out, I believe it's a due for all. Now, what I know other municipalities do is they'll end up saying, okay, well, I think Mountaineer gave like I want to say like $1 raise last year, or it might have been a 50 cent, but they did it basically that way. They said every employee is going to get X amount more per hour across the board, instead of doing a percentage raise. So I guess, and I know other municipalities have done that in the past at other places where that way there's not the percentage disparity of 2% for me is not the same as a 2% for another staff member versus another staff member. It's all different. So there's that option, but maybe legal can correct me if I'm wrong, but since we don't have anything specific in our policy as to like either a pay for performance plan or some sort of step increase type thing set in stone, it's one of those what we do for one we have to do for all. And that's why typically in the past we've done either just a straight percentage across the board. And we did actually the town did actually get sued when they pick and chose on we're going to give these 10 employees a raise, but not those other ones. I mean, I know we've departmentally gone in corrected individual departments, but in the past, and I do know there was prior lawsuits when the town picked 10 employees across all different departments and said, you get this percent, you get this percent, you get this percent, and other employees didn't get anything. So there were suits that were brought upon that, and the town did end up settling those, but I know that has happened in the past as well. So.
Okay, you brought up a good point as far as your 2%. Am I correct in remembering that you and the chief have a contract?
That is correct.
That would not be impacted by straight across the board raises?
So our contract states we receive all the same benefits as all other employees. So if you gave a percentage across the board or an incremental increase, we would receive the same as anyone else.
Okay, so in the past, when we gave you a big increase, that because of your contract, has something changed since then?
To my knowledge, you guys haven't changed my contract.
Okay.
What is the term of your contract?
Indefinite until the governing body gets rid of us.
It just says indefinite?
There is no term on there.
We used to negotiate, I know we negotiated once. At the end of a year, we renegotiated yours and the chief's contracts. But anyway, my other question is, I think when we get this pay grade study done, I think we're going to find that there are probably some employees who will get be entitled to a much larger increase than some of the others based upon, what they're doing in their job description and such. So I really, once again, would like to see that study done and brought to us so that we can make better decisions.
I think it's reasonable if they can be contracted and provide the information. I mean, most of these companies already have the information available to them. It shouldn't take them too long to do a report, and then we could reconsider. Just so that everyone, because it could end up taking quite a bit of recurring money if we have to adjust people up.
Which
Well,
was
if we do-
indicated
Go ahead.
in the previous discussion about why we needed a pay grade study. Because apparently, at the time, we were told that there are many, many, many people that would need a bigger increase than what we could afford to do. So, anyway, that's...
Well, we've got a motion and a second for 3%. I think that a pay grade study is a great idea, but we still have to consider the rise in costs of insurance, etc. And regardless, if a pay raise or a pay grade study comes back and recommends adjustments, then we should make those adjustments at that time. But I still think that 3% is a reasonable offset to the cost of the insurance that I see here. So,
Would you guys be willing to do just like other municipalities have done, and just a straight dollar amount for the insurance, like the $30 per check per employee? That way it's covering their costs.
Well, I think we would need to know what that might equate to as far as what this amount is here. How many employees do we have that get paid twice a month?
Councilors, we're talking about a $76,000 adjustment to our budget. And we're also talking about the possible need for a larger one in the future once we acquire a pay study or a. So, do we account for the inflation that we have, as well as the increase in cost of living, I guess, is a way to look at it, and the increase in the cost of insurance as well, with 3%, hoping that covers it, which it probably will not. But then knowing that we're going to have to do something again in the future. So, if I could influence a friendly amendment to your motion, I would add to that motion the cost of a salary study to be done as soon as possible.
That's already been budgeted for last year.
Okay.
And
If it's
just
already
never been
budgeted for,
completed.
then I don't need to do it. But I'm just saying, would that help?
Did you say we have 27 employees?
I think I just counted 37.
Can we take a
Is
short
it-
break for me to go to the restroom?
I don't think that's a problem. We can take a short break.
Thank you.
5 minutes. We're adjourned for 5 minutes.
It's a pretty day for the wedding. Weather-wise.
It's 37 current place.
He's cute. Was that at your house?
It's at their house. I live down off of 14th Street.
I was thinking about you guys.
That's his buddy Garrett. They're the girls. Oldest looking pensive.
I was trying to figure out, was there a special reason why Wednesday I thought it was 7/28/21? Hey.
You can barely see any shadows there.
Do they figure out to the good day? So you take 7 from 28 and you get 21?
Auspicious. I don't know what the pick date was. Oh, there's a
Very nice. Very nice.
we had Robo Judge.
Did you have special ones yesterday?
Oh yes. Have to wear chicken socks.
For the wedding?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I had a suit on. Suit and chicken socks. You notice he's wearing white Converse. My son-in-law, my oldest husband wore red Converse to their wedding. These boys have known each other. I mean, my oldest husband, Ryan, and Zach, and Garrett, those three guys have known each other since like 3rd grade.
That's cool.
It's a small world. You did pause. You didn't pause anything, did you? No pauses? Yes.
level's good on that one. This one's good. Okay. Waiting for one more, and we will come back. Okay, come back into session. We were discussing a motion and a second for a 3% raise for employees. Is there further discussion on this?
I do. So if we just take, since we don't have the pay bands, and 3% would disproportionately, benefit others compared to others, I was thinking, what if we did, for the 38 employees, 26 paychecks, pay periods, right? Times $50, which more than covers the increase in insurance, so some cost of living, and then that's roughly 50,000. So at least it would be a fair, across the board fair increase to cover costs and increases.
And I guess my comment to that is I'm happy with just going historically the way that we have done raises in the past. The next administration with the pay study, I'm sure they will change things, and I say let the change happen at that time.
I think that would be $100 a month more for every employee. So I guess that's my compromise, just since we don't have those pay bands, so that it covers costs plus more even. It should be a pretty fair increase. I will make a motion to increase employees' pay to cover costs in COLA for $50 per paycheck, so $100 a month for the 38 employees for the 26 pay periods, basically $50,000.
Mayor and Council, so that's, sorry to interrupt, but that's basically a 62.5 or 0.625 cents, so 62.5 cents per employee.
Oh, is it that my math is completely wrong?
No, your math is completely right, but that's making it as a dollar an hour amount is 62.5 cents per person.
Oh, as far as
per
translating it into the
right.
hours.
So you're absolutely dead on. It's 49,400 across, but if you put it into hourly rate, that's what it is hourly.
What's that as a percentage of? You can't.
That depends on each person. Yeah.
But that's 62.5 cents per person.
Until the pay grade
fill the pay grade? Well, I'm just thinking of it from the perspective of the fairness to each employee, because if you do by a percentage, obviously those who are higher up are going to get much higher raise than those, and typically it's those who aren't making as much that you need the increase more. So I don't know, I think it's a fair compromise.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to, I don't know how you want to state your amount, but I guess it's is it a $50 a paycheck?
Yes.
So an increase of $50 per paycheck. And I would assume that's a 40-hour paycheck. Per employee raise.
Right.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this, or shall we vote? Councillor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Councillor Holly.
Nay.
Councillor Abraham.
Aye.
I don't know. I'm inclined for a 3% raise for everybody, so I'll vote nay on this. And now we have the primary motion and second for a 3% raise. I certainly hope, Council, that you see fit to at least move this forward. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, Councillor Abraham, how do you vote?
Nay.
And Councillor Jaramillo?
Nay.
And Councillor Holly?
Aye.
And I vote aye. I guess we don't do that. My apologies to the staff.
Temporarily.
What else are we considering on this laundry list?
We need to consider youth programming.
We have $50,000 already added to the budget for youth programming. Do we need to add more?
I think that I will make a motion for the $50,000. 50. Okay, so the GED program for $15,000. The arts programming, which could include the hallway mural that the library wants, for $5,000. The bike park, some planning for $5,000, and summer youth program for, what does that leave us, 20? Let's see here.
How much did you put for the bike park?
I put 5. Is that what you asked for last time? Out of this bucket?
Yes.
Okay. So we may have to drop down.
I would like to see something for the junior police academy.
That I think is in another. Oh yes, you are right. It's in this bucket, not in the police, not in PD's budget. Okay. So.
Mayor and Council, if I may, so just with respect to the bike park, it's actually for programming, so planning, I don't think that could be used. It could be used for planning purposes.
Okay. Well, maybe we save that for another year when it's actually up and running. I mean, I know we have to spend it this year, but I mean budget. Are you okay with waiting, Sherry?
No.
So you want to use 5 for programming, but it's not built?
Okay, then put the 5 to supporting a summer youth program, in addition to the police academy one. I know that there are other camps around. I know the Arts Alliance does a summer camp sometimes, and somebody had talked about the YES program that used to happen. I'm sure probably the Cowboy Church is going to be having some kind of camp programs. I know Wildlife West usually has one. So I would like it to be just general
Okay.
youth camp.
Okay. So I'm going to make the motion. I'll restate my motion clearly. So for the additional 50,000 added in for youth programming, I would like to allocate that as follows: 15,000 for the GED program, 5,000 for the arts, 5,000 for the junior police academy, and 25,000 for a summer program early next year.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council, just also keep in mind the money has to be fully expended and reimbursed by June 30th. So whatever programming, that's fine, just the window is very short for 25,000.
Okay. Yes, I think it will take some organization and preparation, which we have time for, and then school getting out sometime in May. That leaves us enough time to do a 4 to 6 week program, probably.
I got a question. You said 5,000 for the arts. What do you mean?
I was thinking of for example, the Route 66 Alliance, or the quilting, or the wall mural in the hallway that the library wanted. That's only $600, so that could fit in there easily.
So that's kind of at the discretion of staff then?
For the arts?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. But the summer program, I think, needs to be an actual additional, something in addition to what we already do. So whether we go with RGEC or some other vendor or the YES program, get that up and running.
So do we have a second? Did I hear a second?
Second.
So we've got a motion and a second to allocate the $50,000, and I'm at a loss to restate it. So if you'd like to restate it one more time so we've got it very clear for the record, Counselor, I would appreciate it.
Yes, $50,000 for youth programming, allocated as follows: 15,000 for the GED program in conjunction with MESD, 5,000 for the arts, 5,000 for the junior police academy, and 25,000 for a new summer youth program. For example, using the YES program or Rio Grande Educational Collaborative, some entity like that, for a new summer youth program.
Okay, thank you, Counsel.
Yes.
How do you vote, Counsel? Counselor Abraham.
Aye.
Counselor Holly.
Aye.
Counselor Jaramillo.
Aye.
I'll vote aye as well.
Thank you, Council.
Next, I would like to talk about the bike pump park. I do want to see us allocate a substantial amount for that. So we have $30,000 left out of the 410 from the cash fund. From the general fund that I would like to see used for that bike park.
We have 270 out of that 410, right?
Okay. So I would like to see $30,000 toward the bike park.
And that's for planning?
Yes.
Is that a motion, Counselor?
Yes.
I'll second.
So I have a motion to apply $30,000 of the additional GRTs that we added to fund planning for the bicycle park. Is there any further discussion on this?
You know, one of the, no, not right now. Yeah, that's it for now.
I guess I'd like to say I was very impressed with the presentation, and I'm excited about something like that in our community, but I think there's other things on the list that have been waiting many years already, and my thought is maybe that one's going to have to be put off to the future, but I like the idea.
We've actually been planning this for over 5 years. So it's been in the planning for over 5 years. It just never gets funded because everybody would rather do other things than commit to improvements for our kids. And I think it's very important that we do this.
Is there something else, Councilor Holly, that has been waiting longer that you think is worthy of replacing that?
Well, I'd really like to do the half field at Venus Park and then put the playground equipment on that. As has been stated, Venus Park is in use all the time, and with the soccer leagues playing there, I just know from experience when you've got a little one that's not playing soccer, you know, it's nice to have the playground equipment right there, and you can kind of keep an eye on the little one while the other one's playing soccer. So I think that would get a lot of use. So that would be my preference, the half field at Venus with the playground equipment.
I'm trying to find the playground.
Under Carla's name on page 2.
Button back. Okay, let's see here. Playground. Oh goodness, that's really high.
I'm sure that's something we could start and just build on as we have the funds.
One of the most important things for Venus Park would be bathrooms with running water. That's the hardest thing to have small
I
children.
was going to ask about that. How much do you guys estimate that would be bathrooms at Venus Park?
Mayor Pro Tem Council, I have no clue.
We asked you to get that.
Well, Mayor Pro Tem Council, I can't pull an engineer estimate out in a matter of days, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because you were talking running water, septic tank, all that other stuff, so I don't know.
I do think your bathrooms are important there.
As well as lighting and cameras for all town facilities.
Well, council, we have a motion for $30,000 for planning for a bike park to come out of the GRT added into the budget.
Discussion?
Sure.
So Councilor Abraham, I'm in agreement, but one of the things I don't think is that it would take all of the 30,000 just to plan. I mean, a lot of volunteers would probably help, you know, the parents and the kids that have already done this successfully in Albuquerque. So probably some of that 30 would go to the actual building, right? Yeah, it's not just planning, because it doesn't take that much to plan.
Especially because the BMX people said they would come out and help us with that, as well as the young man had talked to somebody who was willing to come out and help. So, so it would be $30,000 for design and construction.
I think that's reasonable. It's not the 200 that's on here.
Right. Got to start somewhere.
Yep.
Was there a location in mind for this?
Yeah, out by the soccer field.
I will call for the vote.
Did you second, Councilor Hermio? You did? Okay. So, how do you vote, Council? Councilor Hermio?
Aye.
Counselor Abraham.
Aye.
Counselor Holly.
Nay, I don't think that's the best place for that park.
I tend to agree that the expansion of Venus Park had in mind soccer fields going to the west. I believe 3 or 4 of them. And perhaps the town can find another spot. I don't think it's a problem.
The reason that is a good location is because you can come from the middle school, and I've already talked to South Mountain Elementary principal, who has said, if it's nearby within the main part of town, that they can make sure that their students can have like some type of after-school program or something like that. They store the bikes there, they come down, they ride. I think it's imperative that we do something on Section 16 that is for our children. And
I'm saying Section 16 is a decent spot. I'm saying that Venus Park might not be the ideal spot. We've got other areas.
And
the town has other
there.
properties too.
Right, but I think that would be the best part, because you actually could have children riding their bikes while other kids are playing soccer.
It would be really, really nice to have the trail completed from South Mountain all the way to Section 16 too, but some of our dreams are never fulfilled. I vote nay on this. This motion dies for lack of a majority. Let's continue, Council.
I would like to see us consider lighting at Town Hall, lighting at the parks, and landscape at Town Hall. I think these are all long overdue. That would be 16,000 plus 11, so $27,000 total. And it's a safety matter too, the lighting.
So what was that a motion, Councilor?
I'll make a motion that we approve the addition of lighting at Town Hall, lighting at the parks, and landscaping at Town Hall.
For 16,000, is that the?
It's a total of 27,000.
For a total of 27,000.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to add $27,000 for lighting and lighting at the park and at Town Hall, as well as landscaping here at Town Hall. Any discussion? Hearing none, how do you vote, Council?
Mayor Council?
Yes.
Which funding source, please?
Oh, sorry. Is that coming out of the GRT addition?
Small
Yep.
enough, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. GRT addition. Councilor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Holly?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Where shall we go next, Council?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to approve let's just round it to 180,000 for the town manager benefits and search, which would have to come out of the recurring, the GRT. That's 180 out of GRT for the town manager salary, benefits, and search.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve 180,000 out of reoccurring town funds. Is that correct?
Yes.
For a manager benefits and search.
Right.
Any further discussion?
I'm thinking $20,000 a pretty big chunk of change just to do a search, and I think it would be best to do it locally. I think if you're going to talk about doing a nationwide search, I don't know how many people are going to consider moving to Edgewood without housing allowance, travel, moving expenses. Anyway, I just think $20,000 is too much for the search.
Well, if we don't use it all, we don't have to. We can do an adjustment. Better to search well and get good candidates than to save dollars and get somebody that maybe isn't very effective.
Further discussion? We have a motion and second to approve $180,000 for the town manager, benefits, and search. How do you vote? Councillor Abraham?
Aye.
Councillor Holly?
Aye.
Councillor Jaramillo?
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Anything else we want to add to our budget?
We need to add the inline chlorine analyzer for $8,000.
Would that be a motion?
A motion to add the wastewater treatment plant inline chlorine analyzer for $8,000.
I'll second. Any further discussion on that item? One question, where from shall we take this one-time purchase?
This one-time purchase should come from, do we still have money left in?
33,000 left.
Okay. From the general fund. From there.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. Councillor Holly, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councillor Abraham?
Aye.
Councillor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Aye as well. Any further items?
Yes, I do have some.
Okay, Councillor Holly.
I would like us to look at the IT department. There were a number of items that were requested. The backup equipment at PD, updating the equipment at the animal control and the courthouse buildings, security upgrades at animal control, server upgrade at animal control, and the cabling patch paneling at the wastewater plant, and also the library server upgrade. I think those would all benefit many departments, and I think we still have enough funds available in the general fund.
I think we need to leave in, well, I think it's already in there, the ENCODE transparency portal.
Right.
That's already,
It's already in there.
that's already part of a previous budget. We still have it in the budget.
Okay. Let's see here. The backup solution for the town was something I checked off here as very important. Does that mean we don't have backups right now?
We do have backups, however, it is very old equipment and it is quite past its prime. The backup units that we have are, I want to say, previous to the Hill administration, sometime back in Mr. Sturley's administration, so it's been quite a long time. We've gotten quite a good bit of use out of that equipment.
Okay. But it's still operating. So.
Yes.
Okay. We can probably hold off on that.
I wouldn't recommend it, but that's me.
We could take it from cash balance. I'm okay with that. If you guys want.
Yeah.
How much of it? Do we want to take the whole
30.
thing from cash balance?
The 30, yeah.
So, do I hear a motion to purchase a backup solution for $30,000?
I so move.
I'll second that, and that's out of cash balance. Any further discussion on that item? I'll call for a vote on that. Councillor Holly?
Aye.
Councillor Jaramillo?
Aye.
And Councillor Abraham?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. What about backup equipment for PD and the updates for security and equipment for the library.
All those other items that I mentioned total $22,000.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve and purchase the upgrades for servers and backup equipment for the PD and animal control and the library for approximately $20,000. Is it?
And the court.
And the court, yeah, I think it's 20. Oh no, that's.
And the cabling, patch paneling at wastewater.
And the cabling, so that's another 4,000. So that would be 24,000.
It was 22.
Or is it 22,000? 2, 3 is 5, 8, 12. You're right, 22. Yeah, 22,000.
22.
So there's a motion and a second to approve 22,000, and we are taking this from
General fund?
From general fund. So that takes from the 33. We're taking this from the general fund, and that would be backup equipment for PD, update equipment at animal control and court, security upgrades, server upgrades at animal control and library, as well as cabling, patch paneling at the wastewater treatment plant.
May I add one item to use up the entire 410?
Sure.
Okay, so it was a 16-foot event trailer that maintenance requested. I think that's important because we have so many events, and right now they're having to take multiple trips back and forth. And I can see it being very useful.
Okay.
Second that.
I don't remember if I seconded that one, but I'll take it as a friendly amendment if Councilor Holly does as well.
Yes, I will.
Oh, okay.
So we have a motion and a second for the event trailer as well as the server upgrades and backup equipment, which will use up the balance of about $33,000 of the $410 that we added into our GRT budget. How do you vote, Council? Councilor Holly?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. I think we have used up our 410. If we don't want to dive into our further cash balances, then we are at a budget. And the motion and second for the approval of the final budget. Is there any further discussions?
Mayor Pro Tem, I think a couple of things. The court, to increase the conferences budget, I wanted to do that if we could. Maybe it's just a one-time expenditure for these trainings. But then also I'm worried that we didn't provide P&Z the lean and clean that she's going to need to do this year for sure. So yeah, maybe that's just a one-time expense as well that we take out of cash balance.
We certainly can take that out of cash balance and add to the P&Z budget if you wish.
What do you guys think? I think the lean and clean
If
and
you're,
attorney's fees is really important for that. It's been
yeah.
long overdue.
I think if that would be a motion, Counselor, I would definitely second it.
Okay. And let me just state before I make my motion also that I did hear her tell us about Campbell Ranch and the office supplies and postage, and I think maybe we do a bar on that later on if that's okay, because right now we used up all the 410. So, but she may, if that comes to fruition where she does need more for Campbell Ranch, then I think we just do a bar at that time. Okay, so I will make a motion to provide increase in attorney's fees by $10,000, increase in lean and clean budget by $25,000, and increase in conference's budget for the court of $6,000 from using cash balance.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion, council? I see none. Councillor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councillor Abraham?
Aye.
Councillor Holly?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Are there any further adjustments that we would like to make to the budget before adopting the resolution?
I just want to state for the record that we allocated the 410, we allocated 150 for other capital projects, right? And
Yes.
then we used $780,000 of cash balance out of the, was it 2.4 million?
2.7.
2.7 million. So we're basically taking our cash balance from 2.7 to 2 million.
Correct.
Were there any other high priority items?
I think if anything rises to the top, we can certainly, with a $2 million cash balance, adjust if we need to.
I agree.
And it leaves us in a very good cash position. So once again, I will state the motion to approve Resolution 2021-16, the Town of Edgewood Final Budget Resolution, including all of the changes that we have just gone through. The clerk has recorded those changes and will issue the final budget resolution in its total with all of the changes that we have discussed here tonight and file that with the Department of Finance. So if there is no further discussion, I'll call for a second and we will have a vote.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2021-16, the Town of Edgewood Final Budget Resolution for year 2021-22. Council, how do you vote?
One question that we failed to address with Juan, normally we have our reserve amounts, and I just wanted to double check that we are okay on our reserves.
Councilor, if I may, Mr. Torres, I've already checked on our reserve amounts. We do have the required amount in reserves.
Thank you.
Again, how do we vote? Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Councilor Holly?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We have a unanimous vote for the fiscal year 2021-22's budget. Thank you, Council. If we have nothing else, I will call for an adjournment.
Mayor, I move we adjourn.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.